I'm not laughing because it's funny. You would know this better than any, because some people seem to have lost their sense of humor and an attitude of political correctness. But I'm laughing because this from a country which has Justin Trudeau as a prime minister. It's unbelievable to me.
Yeah, I mean, Justin Trudeau is an utter disaster on many, many fronts. I mean, first of all, and I say this again, not to be disrespectful, not to, be bombastic in any way, but I genuinely mean it that when I say the following. If I were to take in my 22, now almost 23-year professorial career, the absolute dumbest undergraduate student that I've ever had, that student would be approximately 100 times smarter than Justin Trudeau. And I say this advisedly. Now, this is a guy who, until he was 40 something, was his biggest claim to fame was that he was a snowboarder and a substitute drama teacher.
Right.
And now he is the leader of, one of the most important Western countries in the world. He's never uttered a syllable, not a syllable, that wasn't a grotesque platitude of stupidity, right? I've even satirized, how do you generate a Justin Trudeau speech? Basically, you just sort of concatenate a random permutations of the word diversity, climate change, inclusion, and just play around with those words, and you come up with random gibberish. He's a guy who's been infected with all of the politically correct platitudes of political correctness, of cultural relativism, of multiculturalism. And so it's as though Canada is trying to desperately repeat all of the errors that our European brothers have committed and trying to outdo them. It's really tragic.
And he really, apart from being the son of a former prime minister, doesn't have any credentials for this job either. He's a good-looking guy, and that seems to get him a lot of votes too, which is the most ridiculous reason to vote for a politician. But it seems to me like the point where I realized I couldn't possibly have any common ground with Justin Trudeau was when, post the death of Fidel Castro, he chose to say that this was a comrade and a friend of humanity, and that this was a sad loss for all of us, that, Fidel Castro had hopped the perch, someone who we should have been cheering in the streets and jumping up and down and playing music at very high volume to celebrate the departure of.
Exactly right. And I don't know if you remember, there was a hashtag, I don't remember what it was exactly, but something like hashtag Trudeau eulogies, where everybody would come up with satirical, and I had come up with some of my own that had, at least one of which had gone viral. Every single issue that you could think of, he will be on the wrong side of that issue. I'll give you another quick example. When he was a parliamentarian, prior to becoming prime minister, at one point, some colleague of his had, in describing all of this stuff, the honor killings and the child brides and the genital mutilations and so on, he had described it as barbaric, and that there is no such place for such practices, such barbaric practices in Canada. Mm-hmm. And Justin Trudeau's original response was that he was deeply offended and shocked and disturbed by the fact that this guy would use the word barbaric to describe the practices. So it wasn't that he was upset about the practices, but he was upset about the use of barbaric. Because, who are we to judge, the practices of those other wonderful brown people? And then, of course, there was some backlash, and then he came back and apologized and so on. But his first instinct was not to defend the integrity and the dignity of those little girls and those women, but rather to be upset that someone would categorize such mistreatment as barbaric.